Hi, welcome everybody. We were just catching up. Diane has a brand new rescue puppy that we were chatting about. So, welcome. We're glad to see everybody here today. Feel free to use the chat and the Q&A. You're also welcome to join us on camera if you have questions and want to join the conversation. But I want to first welcome Diane with the CEO of International Society for Computational Biology, quite the mouthful, ISCB for short. And we're really excited to have you here to talk about your community strategy and some of the stuff you guys are doing over there at ISCB. So welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really proud of you. You got all of that right on the first try, so I know you were practicing,
Oh,
just
for
as
sure.
I practiced the closing ceremony for our main meeting over and over with pronunciation. So thanks for having me. I'm excited about engaging with the online community today to talk about our strategy and our successes and our learning curves and our moments of failure that we've had over the past, oh my gosh, when did we launch this? May. So it's only been about 3 months
Yeah,
since we launched the community strategy.
very cool. Well, let's start at the very beginning. Where did you start with your thought process and the decision to go to a 365 approach, doing community to your strategic plan? Like, where did you start with that concept?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that we actually had this all mapped out and it was very thoroughly vetted and we had all this data behind it. But I'm going to be truthful. We stumbled across it and we really were focusing on, we have a strategic goal of creating science equity worldwide. And, there was a silver lining to the pandemic that ISCB was able to benefit from, and that was forcing the organization to embrace digital and to embrace the virtual components of the meeting. So we had plans in early 2020 to launch our ISCB Academy series, which was an online delivery of science content and training. And then when we hit the pandemic, it was an eye opener for us of how quickly we could achieve the mission of science equity and really enabling those who don't have the funding to travel to these big conferences to come and collaborate and present their science. And as we worked through 2 years of different platforms and we were in the RFP search for the platform that we hoped we could find and do more than a year, because I think one of the fails that we had was oh, that platform didn't work, so let's jump to another one. Oh, that one didn't work, so let's jump to another one. And then after 2 years of just pure exhausting of technology, we were like, we need to just search for something that may meet 70% of our needs, but with a provider that would learn to understand science. And I know that no technical provider will ever understand science
Yep.
or the habits of the scientist and the user, but just someone who we could keep one straight platform so that our community could learn one thing. And once they get over that learning curve, it would just be easier and easier and easier. And all the little bells and whistles would just come naturally. Oh, I know I can go here to find that, or let me see if I can do this to find that. So we do 5 conferences globally around the year. And when we were looking for the platform, one can I say that we use Juno? Is that
Yeah.
allowed? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know if I was supposed to like keep it incognito or not, but we did select the Juno platform after an exhaustive search. And one of the key things that kind of put it over the edge was that, hey, did you know you have access to this broader community base that you can use? You can choose to use it, you can choose not to use it. And I was like, huh, that really starts to fulfill a lot of the needs that were in the implementable strategies from our strategic map. Why not do it? And
Yeah.
it was I think there was a little hesitation on the team because when you look at organizational structure and the amount of personnel resources that need to go behind this, we got 4. There are 4
Right.
of us.
Yeah.
So it was a little daunting. I'm like, okay, how can we truly execute a community platform that's 365 with 4 people on top of the other 5 conferences. And we were very, very lucky that we have a staff member who is just uber technical and can handle the tech speak and the programming speak, but is also a PhD himself. So he can flip on his jacket of, oh, let me be a scientist and really think about what I want from a user perspective, and then take
Yeah.
off that jacket and go right to the programmer perspective. So I went to the board in February of this year and I said, hey, we have this great opportunity where we can really start to create a digital community where we can feed information throughout the year, where we can add content, remove content, partner with other groups, feed to other groups, and really create a central hub for our community to go to, because we had all these pieces. It was just go here to find that, go here to find that, go here to find this. But we really wanted to create one central hub. And that's been a desire for the organization for about 5 years. And we just couldn't figure out how to do that until it was dropped in our lap as a byproduct of the pandemic.
That's awesome. I think the strategy approach, and I think a lot of groups are going through that evolution right now of thinking about the last 2 years and the diving headfirst into digital, and then realizing that it was a great value add because you could reach a lot more audiences, to your point, that maybe couldn't afford or didn't have the time to break away from their science to go to these conferences. And so providing that digital footprint, but then even thinking bigger beyond just the events and what does 365 and year round look like. So I find it very fascinating that you guys are going through that evolution. And I think a lot of scientific organizations specifically, but associations in general, are kind of starting to go through that evolution right now. So I think that's really cool. I love the name of your community. I think it's amazing. Nucleus. I mean, it just speaks to your, excuse me, your brand and exactly what you guys do. So what was the overall goal when you were starting to develop Nucleus, and what was the vision and goal of what you wanted to get out of this community?
Yeah, so I have to give kudos to Belle Hansen, who's on our team. She was the one who came up with Nucleus. We wanted something sciency, but we wanted something that truly spoke to the center of things and that communicated globally in any language, the center. So that's how
Right.
that's actually how we came up. So good job to Belle. I chose the cyborg. If you drop on our website, iscb.org, we have like this really cool cyborg that's holding the world and things, so from a branding perspective. But we really wanted to start leveraging and continuing the conversation when it came to the content that we were curating internally. So the ISCB Academy program is a webinar series that is driven by our 21 communities of special interest. And we ask them to deliver 2 webinars every year on their scientific topic. And right before Nucleus was launched, they would just go on to our ISCB TV channel and then we'd forget about them. And we thought there was a lot of opportunity for folks to engage in that content live or on demand that we weren't really capturing because it was just sitting here in a YouTube channel with comments turned off, because all of us who have YouTube channels, if you don't turn off your comments, you get like really bad ads in your comments, then you have to go clear out. I won't speak to the exact ads, but they're not nice ads.
They're all the bots coming
Yeah,
after your
yeah.
comment.
But on top of that, all these communities have all these different Slack channels and all these different Google groups. And here we are, again, a team of 4 trying to, okay, who's using that Google group? Are we getting spammed in that Google group? And we really wanted to just bring it all together. And that was really the ultimate goal. And then once we brought it all together, it was amazing to see all of a sudden, oh, hey, I noticed that you have this on there in this research area. Can I start a conversation? Or, oh, I'd love to do a webinar on this specific training. Can I get into can I get a spot on your platform to do that? And it just started to organically grow, and the excitement started to even grow. And I'll say, I just did our board strategy on Sunday, the 10th of July, and it was amazing to watch the board members sit around in their own community pillars and really think about leveraging digital and this digital community and how we can continue to make this a bigger place, not only for computational biology, but for computational sciences and life sciences, just globally. And oh, hey, did you know you can add this app and it translates it for you? It's not great, but it's getting better. And oh, we've been trying to build out a description of our professions for 4 years now. And now we can go in and actually tag people within the community and say, this is their profession. Reach out to them if you want to learn more about managing a core facility, or if you want to learn more about, doing your first lab. And it was just so refreshing to see that leadership group start to really embrace what Nucleus has to offer. And then I'll say what was even better. And we all, for those who work in the science area, there is a very hard balance between what is free and what is paid, and why you have to charge for things, and explaining to people that things aren't free, and explaining that yes, there are amazing funders out there that fund the research side of things, but they don't necessarily fund groups like ISCB, and what we have to offer in disseminating scientific research. So things cost money.
Yep.
And it was just a relief that one of the board members said, we have Nucleus. How can we actually monetize this platform and make it a member benefit? And excuse me for 1 second. I need to grab a tissue. Just one quick second.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
that's really cool that your board is finally embracing it and then seeing the benefits, and now having the sort of 2.0 conversations of like, we have the people here, we have the audience, how can we monetize this? And eventually, that monetization covers the cost of the technology. So then that
Yeah.
frees up some funds for you to do, other things to achieve your strategic goals.
And I think, it's really is learning and looking at user behavior and assessing those goals and those strategies. So we went into this thinking, okay, everyone wants to engage live. And the live portion of what we have to offer is going to be the member benefit. And and then we found, after about 2 months of producing the content and, things, that it wasn't actually the live portion that was getting the views. It was the on demand portion that was getting the views. So, and we were also getting some constructive feedback. I'll use the word constructive feedback from the audience, like, oh, why can't you just open the live free? Why can't everything just be free? So, we had a quite
That's the
lengthy
age-old
discussion.
question. Why can't
Yeah.
everything just be free? I think
I
every
want everything to be
planner
free.
CEO is dealing with that with their boards. Just make it
Yeah.
free.
And I want school supplies to be free, but that's not going to happen. Anyway, I digress. So we're sitting there at the board, and we were talking about user behavior and the goals and the strategies. And I said, why don't we reverse the model? Let's open the free webinar. Let's open the webinar live, completely free, completely open access. All you have to do is sign up. And the sign up process is really just to control the viewership, and making sure that we're not getting, the crazies that we still know exist out there that will, bomb your webinars.
Yep.
Um, and, make that completely open access. But if you want to view it on demand, you're a member, or you pay a subscription fee. And it was amazing. Like, I've been doing this for 9 years. For 9 years, I have been preaching the world is not free. And they were like, Diane, that's a brilliant idea. When can we reverse the programming? I was like, July 22nd.
Well,
So
that's interesting concept. So that's not where you guys started. So this sort of freemium model, watch it live, get it free, but if you want to consume it later or go back and watch it later, you have to pay for it. Is that where you guys started, or did you change that after you saw the behavior in your community?
so it wasn't where we started. It was a change in direction when we started to see how many more people were viewing it on demand, and that's where it was free, because in our minds it was about, oh, I want to engage in the chat, and I want to engage in the Q&A, and I want to have access to that presenter after the webinar. And we're very, very fortunate. We have a great community where people are very generous of their time, and will continue on for, as long as there are questions in the Q&A, they're going to stay on and answer those questions. And it just, we saw that shift, and we're like, for us, it's about that tangible member benefit. We don't have a journal that we send out, and we don't have magazines that go out, which I do think most people are switching from that model anyway. And it was just, how do we provide a value for the membership?
I think
So,
the word you hit on was tangible
yeah.
member value, because I think there's all kinds of indirect. So I think I just wanted to call out that word you used because I think that's important.
So I'll let you know how it goes. You guys can all follow up with me in 6 months, and I'll let
Yeah,
you know what our pickup was. And
for sure.
but it really, I mean, I think it is the important thing about engaging in these community platforms is understanding that you have to continuously have some type of content. It can't be a just open it and let it sit. You really have to have those early adapters and adopters, and get them involved and engaged. And it's hard. It's hard to get people adjusted to new things and new platforms. But once they're there, and once they understand the oh, hey, I can go to this one spot, and it's almost like my computational Twitter.
Yeah. Your own
Then
private social network.
exactly, exactly. And it's a vetted one too.
Yes.
It's just not someone out there doing a sales call in the platform, because we do monitor that, and we do, kick those people out, because that's not the purpose of the
Correct.
platform. The
Yeah.
purpose is scientific collaboration, networking, engagement, and delivery of content.
I love that. So one thing, now you mentioned a little bit that some of it grew organically. What was your initial plan or outreach strategy when you launched Nucleus? What did you use incentives to get people to start engaging in there? What was that initial outreach plan?
I wish we would have done it better, but here's my lesson learned. You really do need a communication strategy when launching these things. We have, with our communities of special interest, and the volume of volunteers that orchestrate that component of our organization, there were about 125 of those. So we brought them on very early on and we caught it like a beta testing of the platform, and for them to get user experience, because we rely on that group to disseminate information within their niche scientific areas. So we started there, and we had fantastic feedback. And the build out was really the most recent content that we had content captured, that we were moving into the libraries. And then we slowly moved over ISCB Academy, over there. So that was, once a week something was coming up, and then our trainings went over there, and then once a month we do a training program. So I think where our misstep was is we sent out a kind of a broadcast email to the community. Hey, this is free. It's easy to log in. Get your magic link. Um, and we really didn't do a lot of continuous follow up, or little videos or little snippets along the way, because we basically launched Nucleus and then turned around to execute our hybrid conference for our annual meeting. Nucleus launched in May. Annual meeting, hybrid conference was the second week of July. So with the resources from a human perspective, we didn't necessarily focus as much as we could have on Nucleus. And I think that looking back in time, if we would have done more engagement and training, even at student groups and doing more, hello, come explore Nucleus with me today. When the 1,800 delegates that went to ISMB, they would have already had a better understanding of the rhythm of the
Yep.
platform, and we would have day one overcome some of the silly complaints like, why is my screen freezing? Why
Right.
can't I hear you? And often those are all user end issues like
I'm
refresh.
still using Internet Explorer, those questions.
Yes. We did have one person using Internet Explorer. I was shocked. I was shocked. But I would really encourage anyone who is thinking about going to a community platform is to really think about that communication strategy and laying it out. And it doesn't have to be a word vomit. And that was our problem. We just word vomited this welcome email that it must have been 3 pages long and do this for this functionality. I think going snippets out and even leveraging where our community is using social media with those snippets would have helped for a more successful launch. It was still a great launch. And
Yeah.
now after the conference has happened, now we're seeing a lot more people, getting on Nucleus and looking at the forums and understanding the forums. And I'm kicking myself because I have 1,800 people at this conference. And did I even think to do a technology track on Nucleus? I
Well, I
didn't.
was gonna ask you, did you launch ahead of your annual in preparation to talk about Nucleus? Like, was that part of your strategy was, "Let's launch this 2 months before the big meeting, and then we can market it and get some engagement and get people really jazzed about it at the meeting." Was that
It,
part of the
it
strategy?
was Megan. It was part of the strategy, but
Or a happy accident,
sometimes
did you paint a little tree?
sometimes the path that you are set upon in life isn't always the path that you plan. So, for those who are going into your hybrid conferences coming up, we had big plans. We had the computer ready to go. We were ready to bring people over to the booth and show them Nucleus and, get the monitor out. And then 12 hours before the start of the conference, one of our key personnel tested positive for COVID. So they were immediately quarantined
Real
in
life
the
challenges
hotel
here.
room, which completely shifted all of everything that we hoped we could do at the conference to market Nucleus. I mean, we still had our ads running and we still had a lot of engagement at the booth, asking us a little bit more about it. But I do think that in our moving forward, one of our strategies will be to do a community conversation about the platform and really demonstrating to people how it can be used and why we're doing this. But it's really right now we're still getting people adapted to the platform and understanding the concept. And as we build out this content, and the board had some amazing ideas that we'll be executing in the fourth quarter and first quarter of next year, really about engagement, that I do think that it works well for our group. And when they see it more and more, because they'll see it for all of our conferences coming up,
Yep,
the same platform technology, that it'll be second nature to them
for
on
sure.
how to access it. And we'll start to use that community feedback when we continue to do the build outs. Like, what do you want to see? Because you have to find a platform, whether you go with Juno or another one. There's so many out there. It really has to meet the behavior of your audience. And we're finding that flexibility with how we structured Nucleus, that it is quite adaptable. And once they get used to it, they're in there, they're using it, and it's almost like your own Facebook, Twitter, uh,
Reddit all in one.
YouTube,
Yeah,
Netflix, kind of all in one.
yeah. I love that. Well, I think two things is first is you're literally changing human behavior. You're asking your members, your audience, your community to stop going to 5 places and go to one. And so some of that takes time, right? So there has to be a level of patience and understanding that this is, going to take some time to change behavior, get people
Mhm.
adapted to the new system, get them comfortable, get them to realize after the conference, don't delete the app because that is now your community after the event's over. So I think some of that is, and patience is sometimes important when building these community strategies because it does take time to change
Mhm.
human behavior. We all know, it's not a quick fix to change your habits and where you're going and what you're doing. And one thing you touched on that I find also very interesting is you keep mentioning your board is getting very excited about this, that they're seeing the benefits already, just a few months in. You're very fortunate to have a board that is open to innovation and change. Not all boards have been that way. I come from the association space and have never been blessed to have a board that was very innovative. It was always a hard sell for me.
Mhm.
So what did that conversation look like as you were pitching a community site like this to them? And now that they see the benefits of it, are they coming to the table with, we should put that in Nucleus? How can we monetize Nucleus? Like, what is that conversation now after you sold it?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's me being fortunate or me just strong arming them over and over again, and they're tired of hearing me talk, so they just agree to get me to stop talking. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, board. You're amazing. I love you. Um, but I think
We'll
it
cut that part out so they won't even.
it's okay if you don't. I I'll tell you one thing, if there's one characteristic about me is I'm very transparent and they know if it's a good day or a bad day because I'm going to tell them about it. Um, I think it really was a conversation that evolved over time. And I think they started to recognize inequality at so many levels in scientific research. I mean, you can speak to inequality about the gender bias and the pay bias and the funding bias. And as we started to think about how do we resolve inequality to how things we could actually do and be actionable about it, that's when they started to think of, okay, how can we leverage streaming of things? And we did our very, very first test. I'll call it a test in 2019 when we did a live broadcast of the keynote speakers for our annual meeting, and you could only access the live broadcast of the keynote if you were a member, or you could pay $50 per keynote, 5 keynotes, which was silly if someone did that. Someone did do that, paid $50 to watch every single keynote, and the registration was not that much more to get full access to the content. But I digress. I'll
Buying
never
behaviors.
understand spending behavior.
Yeah.
So I think when they saw that excitement from how they could reach communities with just content delivery, it got their wheels spinning. And it
Okay.
really got them focused on addressing inequalities, but leveraging technical spaces to do it. And then, as I said at the top of the conversation, the pandemic forced us. I mean, it
Yeah.
really, really forced us. So then it got us to think, oh my gosh, we have uh, 20 years of content capture that we've been storing on these different places that is not really publicized. How can we look at those authors and give them the opportunity of research that has had a lot of citations over the past few years to come back on and talk about it, or talk
Yeah.
about how that research evolved, or talk about how they're using the new technologies applying to the data to move forward. And that even got the board. Anytime you talk about science, that gets the board even more jazzed. So they are really have been just so great and understanding, if we're going to have this tool, let's maximize the usage of this tool. And you know, from our conversations in July, they were even like, oh, we should do this. We should have these little short snippets about research areas. Then we can break into groups and really talk about, okay, how do you get into a research area? How do you decide what research path you're going to go on? And have them be led by these really uber awesome scientists to really start to build a community in our profession.
Yeah.
And it's just been so great to see, and them understanding like, okay, well, now how can we leverage the platform to sell sponsorship? Or, you know, something I didn't anticipate is Nucleus launches, we do our first two trainings, then all of the sudden I have all these companies coming to me saying, oh, well, how can I do a training on your platform? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't really have a mechanism for you right now, but give me 2 days and I'll come up with something for you to pay.
We'll find something to spend your money on.
I mean, it's been so awesome to just see that, and for the community to bring me ideas that I didn't even think were possible
Right.
in that space. I mean, even from our sponsors that we just had at ISMB, all of them got to do technology talks in our technology track. A couple of them were just virtual. One of the gals on site did the virtual technology talk from outside, and I was laughing because I was inside in a room. She's outside sitting by the lake doing this technology presentation, and it was just such a great conversation because we said, how awesome is it that you're outside at the lake, I'm inside, and then I get to see you after this, but our virtual audience gets to engage with us. And it was kind of a perk to them because the in-person audience did not, they could access it later or they could join us virtually. So it's just so cool just to see all these tools that are at our disposal now. And it's just a matter of finding ways to integrate them into our strategy. But again, I will say, you really need to have someone who can speak the speak and walk the walk and drive the initiative. We're fortunate to have Seth on our team. He is our content manager for Nucleus. And he does such a great job of looking at data trends and, you know, watching what hits are happening on Twitter. So for research, and then engaging with the proper community to bring them into the platform. But since our board meeting these past couple of weeks, we're actually board members are even now going out and soliciting webinars for the platform.
That's
And we're
cool.
hoping with our new Science and Society to have a very controversial webinar coming up here this fall, which
Sometimes those are good.
I'll have to give the link to this group and they can sit and watch it for free. If you miss it, then you got to pay for the on-demand access.
Shameless plug. Well, I think a couple of things you really touched on. The first one is bringing DEI as part of that strategy. And a lot of groups are adding DEI initiatives into the conversation and their strategic
Mhm.
plans. And I love that you're connecting the dots between community and that DEI piece, because I think leveraging technologies, again, whether it's Juno or any other community platform, really helps bring that together and cut down some of those barriers to equity and inclusion, and giving a space for diverse voices to all be part of the conversation regardless of where they are. And being an international society, when I mean COVID is still lingering, travel restrictions are still there. I mean the flights, I mean I've been traveling a lot the last couple of weeks. The airports are a madhouse and traveling still is a problem. So being able to have a centralized place like you guys do really kind of levels the playing field and invites everyone to the table. Now, they then have to choose to use that table and that seat to be part of that conversation, but you have now leveled the playing field. So I absolutely love that you're connecting your community strategy with your DEI strategy.
Oh, thank you. Thank
I
you.
think
I'll give some credit to the DEI committee for pushing us along there.
I absolutely love that. And I love that you're diversifying some of your pricing models and your content. And you even mentioned, you know, Seth is your content manager for Nucleus,
Mhm.
and how you're dropping content weekly, monthly, and diversifying that. So some of it's webinars, some of it's scientific, bringing back presenters from a year ago, update us on your research. Had the most citations from the meeting or the most viewed. Update us. I mean, those are such creative ways to keep people going back, because I think that's one of the key successes to Nucleus and anyone's community strategy is like, you have to give them a reason to keep coming back. Like, especially in the early stages where you're changing that behavior. It's not instinctive. Like, a lot of people pick up their phone and immediately click on Facebook because that's your human behavior, your habit, and they have to get there. So I think your content strategy is great. And speaking of your staffing and that strategy, you said you have 4 staff members, which is a small but very mighty team. And you guys probably all wear a lot of hats. So what does it look like for your team? And, how do you guys manage it with just 4 amazing humans?
Well, I will say, and I made this joke last week while we were at the annual conference. I am probably the only CEO in the world who runs from room to room to do technology fixes or troubleshooting or tech moderation myself. I for an hour sat through a track. We had the tech moderator just wasn't getting it, and the chair was getting a little frazzled, so I showed up in the room and I executed the rest of that session while we redistributed personnel. It is a bit exhausting. It is a bit overwhelming. I think that, I'm hoping to go to the board with a request for another at least half-time employee to help us keep things from a societal point moving forward, so we can really work through this learning period and this learning curve and the continue of the execution. I've always been a servant leader in my strategies when leading a team. And I tell my team that we're never going to do something that I don't think that I myself cannot handle. And I think they really see a lot of value in that, because they know that I will never put them in a situation that we cannot resolve or come to a solution or find some way to get through it. Now, I will say, we had the test of a lifetime this past week, where we knew going, ISMB was our very first hybrid conference. We had never done this before. Yes, have we executed this conference 22
Just sorry to know, one point of clarification. We're talking simultaneous hybrid. So you were live streaming everything from
Yes.
your in-person conference. Okay.
Yes, we were live streaming or bringing in remote speakers for 10 concurrent tracks at a convention center with remote speakers. I believe the final count was 156 remote presentations that came in over the course of the four days and 2 hours, because we do something funny. We kick off with a keynote, then we have a reception, and then we launch the conference. And I think we really understood that small staff resource greatly, especially when you're headbound. I can't tell you, when I got that call on Saturday at 6 p.m. Oh, it was 4. And I was like, okay, just give me a minute. I need to just take in what you just said. You said you tested positive for COVID. Okay. And you're our lead tech guy. Okay. And just, re-executing every responsibility that need to happen. Yeah. Did we falter? We absolutely did. We had day 1, we had a little token issue that we took a little bit to resolve, but the recording was great. So anyone who didn't watch it live said, well, what's wrong? The recording's great. The recording was perfect. And I think something we didn't really understand was attendee behavior on site. So it's amazing. You have 600 people in the room. Of those 600, 400 are on their computer watching the same session that they're sitting in the room for. And
That's really interesting.
What is going on here? The slide, and then it dawned on me, they can see the slides better from watching it, the slides on their computer or their phone, than the slides up on the screen, because depending on where you sat in the room. So we had to adapt to a little bit of a bandwidth issue with all of that. But I will say, when you think about executing these hybrid events or these community platforms, it really is keeping a transparent communication with your community, and accepting the failures along the way. And I didn't call them failures, I called them moments of failure, because they were just moments in the grand scheme of things. Everything broke down Monday. AV wasn't sent on time, which meant we can't do our tech checks. Then there were only 2 of us. And then though we trained all of the tech moderators the day before, they were nervous. So they were, and it was a moment in time where we struggled, but we all rallied together, and we got through it. And I think it was really important for us. It was 10 concurrent rooms. Did I say that? 10 of them? 10 of them at a time. Streaming content for 7 hours, 7 hours of live content throughout the day. It was, I'm sorry, 8.5. Now I got to do it was absolutely insane. And I can't even believe we thought that we could do that. I can't even believe that we thought we could do, but we did it.
You did.
And I'm so,
you
and
live
I'm
to
so
tell the
proud of it.
tale.
Yeah. So I will just say to those who are on, and, please go to the chat or the Q&A if you have any questions. It can be done, but you have to be willing to accept the falls along the way, and communicate, okay, yes, it wasn't exactly how I thought it would be, and this may not be the level of standard, but give me your grace, give me your patience. Let's all learn together, because if we have a togetherness mentality, we can get through anything. If we have a you versus me mentality, we're not going to succeed. And I'll say, I had to pull a few people aside on Monday, and I said, simmer down. This is not a you versus a me. This is us together to execute this. And by Tuesday, we were great. Like, they were like, why are you on stage apologizing? Everything's great. And I was like, well, okay, if you say so. But it was a little bit more than we thought we could chew. But kudos to the team. Kudos to we had a client service person from the platform who was coming to help with the app and Nucleus. And that individual she dropped everything she was doing and became instantly an integration of our team. And then, that 2 became 3, and that 3 became 4. And then, like I said, by day 2, we were in that rhythm. And everyone was happy. In fact, I heard feedback that the online audience enjoyed it more than the in-person audience, because the in-person people could see like the flipping of the screen, where the online audience were like, okay, here's the next set of slides.
I love that. I love it. Well, as we're wrapping up here, just one final thought. Are you planning to use some of the data from your platform to make decisions in the future? So you kind of talked about using your social media to see trends, using the conversations going on in your forums inside Nucleus. Is that going to help form, and are you going to leverage your community to form content in the future?
Yeah. And that's probably something I'm super excited about, is taking time to look at that data and look at, how people are consuming the content now. Again, another really surprising part of the conference that I didn't expect was we had a pretty good pickup for virtual. I was hoping for it to be a little bit better, but even those who chose to attend virtually did not necessarily sit all day long in their track. They waited for the recording to be released and went back and watched the recording. And I think, there are many reasons behind that. You can watch it at 1.5 speed. You can pause it. But I think what's really cool is we kept the comment section for each of those recordings, so that people can still engage and ask questions and comment on the content of the sites. So having the data is going to be super awesome for us. I haven't exactly formulated a plan of how we're going to look at that data and how we're going to prioritize it. I still have a little bit of annual meeting hangover.
Sure.
that I'm working
You're only a
through.
week out. You're allowed.
I know those online, you're like nodding their head, "Oh, I know the hangover feeling." But I do think that it's going to give us the ability to course correct and to look at content differently and to have a better engagement in the future because we that data was there, but we weren't really using it. But now we really can see the ups and downs and what works and what doesn't work. And are people dropping off when it's just a remote presentation? Are they staying on? Folks on site said, "Oh, as soon as the remote speaker came on, I left the room and went to network in the hall because I knew I could watch it later." Which is kind of disappointing because I didn't want the remote speaker to be any less of a person.
Right.
But I also get it, because they can go
When
in the
you're in
hall and
person, you
engage
have
in
different
chat.
goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I'm super excited about that. And I know that it's going to take us time to kind of get through that data and digest that data, but it's only up from here. And
Yeah.
we can only learn and get better and grow. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end this. I'm super excited about Nucleus. Bravo to your team on
Thank
their
you.
first simultaneous hybrid conference and leveraging that community and getting it rolling with Nucleus and getting your board on board, getting the board on board with your program and community. And I just think you guys are hitting it out of the park and doing all the best practices, and you're seeing the successes of that. So thank you to everyone joining us today. Diane, thank you so much for sharing the good, bad, and ugly of launching
You're very
Nucleus
welcome.
and your site with Juno. We're super excited to have you. I mean, this was a masterclass of learning. So